Welcome to our Saturday roundup of French stories from the past week. To talk them all over, I'm joined via video by Andrew Smith, the historian of modern France and a lecturer at Queen Mary University. Andrew, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Now, we're starting this week with tension over the war in Gaza that spilled into the French parliament and back into the streets. Paris saw 3 consecutive nights of protests this week over the offensive in the southern city of Rafah. Protests also took place in other cities from Marseille to Lyon. And meanwhile, in the National Assembly on Tuesday, a lawmaker from the far-left France Unbowed Party was suspended for 2 weeks and given a temporary pay cut after he held up a Palestinian flag. Now, that took place as lawmakers were discussing the issue of Palestinian statehood, which was recognized this week by Ireland, Spain, and Norway. Andrew, obviously, this is a divisive issue in all countries with large Jewish and Muslim diaspora populations, but how have we seen it reverberating politically here in France?
Yeah, absolutely. It's remained a very hot issue in France. And of course, immediately after his deputy was banned, Jean-Luc Mélenchon of France Unbowed complained that, it had been fine for the assembly to fly the Ukrainian flag back in 2022. Now, of course, the law in the assembly doesn't ban the flying of foreign flags, but instead the use of other kind of things to kind of make those protests. We've seen before people wearing yellow vests, the assembly member, Deputy Jean Lassalle from down the Pyrénées-Atlantiques, and other people like that causing problems. But it's really this Gaza issue which has been huge. And we've seen it also in mayoral protests. You mentioned in Marseille, Lyon, and we also saw it in Montpellier, where the town halls are darkening their lights at night in protest against this. So there's been a lot of really back and forth about this. And of course, on the European elections as well, the Republicans, the centre-right party, had a kind of flashpoint moment where their candidate for the European elections leading the list confronted a France Unbowed protester at Sciences Po at one of these kind of encampments outside. So it's been a really kind of hot topic, of course, right across French politics and touching a lot of different issues at the same time.
Yeah, definitely something that's going to continue to rile up French politics in the weeks to come. We're going to turn now to another sensitive issue. This week, French Parliament began debating a landmark end-of-life bill. It would create a legal framework for those who are terminally ill to get help in ending their lives. Solange Moujon explains what's in that bill and how changes to it are already controversial.
It is a divisive and highly personal issue. Whether receiving help to die should be legal or not. After years of planning, Emmanuel Macron presented a bill in April that would set a legal framework for such help. Initially, it laid out the following criteria. The person had to be an adult, a resident or citizen of France, capable of discernment or free will, have a serious incurable disease with a life-threatening condition that caused unbearable suffering. But as it initially worked its way through parliamentary committees, the text was changed before debates. The wording vital prognosis now says that a person must be in an advanced or terminal phase of a disease. For the government, this change is too broad. It wants a return to the initial phrasing.
By referring only to an advanced or terminal phase of a disease, this can lead to the inclusion of numerous non-fatal pathologies which go beyond the philosophy of the text.
Debate in Parliament will also focus on how and at what stage such instructions can be given. With diseases like Alzheimer's in mind, some MPs on the left and in Macron's party, they want requests made prior to a patient losing their ability to judge to be valid, even if the patient later loses their discernment. Yet other MPs, many of them conservatives, want the patient to be able to express free will at every stage. Then there's the question of who makes the call. For the government, multiple health professionals need to agree.
The doctor who decides to authorise this assistance in dying will do so as part of a multi-professional collegial procedure.
A number of Conservative MPs are dubious. They fear the decision to end someone's life will come down to a single healthcare provider. On the left, other MPs fear the requests will be weighed down by lengthy hurdles and committees. And then there's the question of who will administer the lethal substance. In addition to a health professional being able to do so, the bill says the patient or a person of their choice can also administer it. Also part of the bill, palliative care will be discussed. With such contentious issues, the debate could run until the summer of 2025.
Solange Moujon with that report. Now, this Friday, French police announced they arrested an 18-year-old accused of plotting an Islamist-inspired attack on a soccer game at the upcoming Paris Olympics. The young Chechen national reportedly wanted to target fans and police at a stadium in the southern city of Saint-Étienne. France's interior minister said it was the first such thwarted plot targeting the games, which start in just 8 weeks. Andrew Smith, I want to go back to you. This arrest is pretty chilling news for Olympic spectators. Just how big are the security concerns at this point?
Well, it's one of the fundamental concerns around the security, and it has been since day one. A huge amount of work being done to try and, of course, kind of staff policing for the events, but also to bring in kind of outside contractors, private security, and all the rest of it as well. There's, I think, over 180,000 volunteers for the Olympics, and every single one of them gets checked, background checked, and all the rest of it. 800 have been rejected, and 15 of them identified as potential threats as well. And it's not just the idea of Islamist terror threats, but also, potential disruption from environmental movements and other kind of issues like that as well. Now, we can see a lot of worry about that from kind of moments, sporting moments, like you mentioned there, the football matches and all the rest, but also the opening ceremony itself. Now, Gérald Darmanin, the Minister of the Interior, he obviously said that Plan B essentially has become Plan A. Originally, they planned for something like 600,000 visitors there on the day. Now that's been halved to 300. We also saw the number of boats originally planned with athletes was going to be around 160. Now that's under 100. There have been these measures put in place to try and make it as safe as humanly possible. But still concerns around that, around theft of laptops and that might have secure details on them, worries about cyber attack as well. So this has been a full spectrum policing operation designed really to ensure that this can be safe games. But already we've seen people carrying the Olympic flame, the torch, have said they have felt safe, they haven't felt under any pressure or any threat. So there's a real hope that this will all go off without a hitch.
Yeah, authorities have been working hard to keep it safe, but it's going to be a chaotic time for many other reasons as well. Finally, we're going to turn our attention to the scooter at the heart of a presidential love affair. In 2014, photos of then-President Francois Hollande hopping onto the three-wheeler to pick up his mistress, actress Julie Gaillet, stirred up a bit of a national scandal. He went on to marry her, though, in 2022. Well, this week, that infamous scooter was sold at auction for 20,500 euros. The buyer was the owner of a car museum who plans to put it on display so, quote, everyone can enjoy it. Andrew, do you remember that scandal back in 2014? And what do you make of the fact that this scooter has now become sort of a French cultural relic?
Yeah, of course. Everybody, I think, remembers the sudden revelation. I don't think it was just the revelation that Hollande had a mistress, but it was more the way he was getting around, the idea of him weaving in and out of traffic on this little scooter. Of course, we can see other kind of presidential examples of that. Look at Valéry Giscard d'Estaing, of course. Now, he was reportedly involved in a car accident in which his mistress was riding in the front seat. However, he was driving a Ferrari, which seems altogether a bit more presidential than the back seat of a little scooter. But I think it's a big thing. It's sold at auction. It becomes like Vizier, Napoleon's white horse, which of course is stuffed in Les Invalides, or de Gaulle's Citroën DS21, of course with the bullet holes from the assassination attempts at the side. Perhaps a less storied moment, but nonetheless one, I think, which will make people smile when they visit that small machine of motors. Certainly a useful one to remember Francois Hollande by.
I'd love to know how Francois Hollande feels about that. And finally, it is known as the most beautiful avenue in the world, and it even has its own catchy song. But the Champs-Élysées has long lost its appeal for ordinary Parisians. Paris City Hall is looking to give the avenue its shine back, though. Emerald Maxwell tells us more.
It's overrun with tourists and cars, some 50,000 vehicles a day. But Paris's most famous avenue long ago lost its charm for Parisians. So will a revamp help its appeal? Plans to reinvent the Champs-Élysées aim to make it greener and reclaim 2 of its 6 lanes of traffic for pedestrians.
It would be nice because we're being invaded by cars and pedestrians need to stroll too, don't they?
The more it's pedestrianized and the fewer cars there are, the happier I'll be, and the more likely I would come here, which I never do apart from for work.
Aside from those who work in the neighborhood or are just passing through, Parisians make up less than 5% of the avenue's visitors. But it wasn't always like this. Renovated by Baron Haussmann in the 19th century, it soon became fashionable. With its beautiful shop windows and entertainment venues, Parisians used to love strolling along the Champs-Élysées. Now urban planners say its luxury stores only draw tourists. They want to give the avenue its appeal back, with more green spaces, twice as many cycle lanes, and by pedestrianising most of Concorde, the largest square in Paris, leaving just one lane for traffic.
How do we get Parisians to want to go to the Champs-Élysées and not to say, we don't go there anymore?
The Paris City Council will now examine the proposals, with the overhaul projected for completion by 2030.
And we'll have to leave it there for a week in France. Andrew Smith, again, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks to all of you for watching, and stay with us on France 24 if you can. We have news coming up in just a moment.